Discover how one unexpected love transformed a millionaire's incredible life behind bars for a catastrophic fall from grace. John Harrison sat on the cold, hard bench in his prison cell, the weight of loss pressing down on him like the suffocating walls. Once a titan of Silicon Valley, his ideas disrupted industries, and his future gleamed with golden possibility. Now, at 38, his dreams lay in tatters, a sea of broken promises and shattered ambitions. The corporate fraud that had once seemed like a harmless gamble now transformed into a 5-year sentence, and anchor dragging him to the depths of despair. Amidst this bleakness, his heart ached most for his grandmother. The memory of her warm embrace intertwined with the presence of her handmade quilts in their attic haunted him. Each stitch represented love and belief, layered with an unwavering faith he now deemed undeserving. Each morning, he awoke to the reality that his greatest achievement, a life once celebrated, had turned into a cautionary tale. The disconnect between who he was and who he now felt overshadowed him like a looming storm cloud. Shame intertwined with anger, fueling an internal conflict that left his mind racing, recalling the moments he slipped into moral ambiguity. The facade of success had blinded him, but now he saw the disappointment reflecting in his beloved grandmother's eyes as clear as day. If only he could rewind time, to a moment before the greed overtook his better judgment. That day, he hesitated to attend art class. Despair gripped him, whispering that nothing could change his fate. But the light in Rose's eyes when she entered the room compelled him to confront his reluctance. Her infectious enthusiasm chased away the grayness, a beacon reminding him that humanity could still exist within these walls. As she guided the inmates in vibrant expressions through paint and clay, he felt an urge to retreat yet again, to hide behind the impenetrable wall he had built. How could he, once a commanding figure, now reduced to this, open the floodgates of raw emotion? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As he sat, pencil poised over paper, John's heart raced with uncertainty. Would drawing his vulnerabilities expose him, or would it deepen the scar he already carried? The real fear, however, was not about the art itself but about the camaraderie developing between him and Rose. Her gentle nudges challenged him in ways he had never imagined, daring him to break free from society's labels and reclaim the worth he believed shattered. With each smile exchanged, warmth blossomed. Yet the threat of losing this fragile connection loomed larger with every second he hesitated. When an anonymous letter slipped through the narrow slot of his cell, igniting suspicion about Rose's past, panic surged through him. Protect her or preserve his risk of exposure? The dilemma shuddered inside his chest. The desire to stand guard over what they had built clashed violently with fears of revealing his own darkness. Would facing the truth again be the catalyst for his own undoing? John stood at the precipice, both yearning for hope and fearing the path that lay ahead, the shadows from his past gnawing at any sense of light he had left. John's mind raced, the implications of the letter twisting inside him like a blade. He sat on the edge of that cold bench, the chill seeping into his bones as thoughts battled for dominance. What did he truly know about Rose? Was her passion for art genuine, or merely a mask for something far deeper, something that could ensnare him in its complexity, and destroy the fragile awareness he struggled to cultivate? The words of the mysterious letter echoed like a drumbeat against the walls of his consciousness, each beat intensifying his anxiety. His heart drummed louder with each passing second, his resolve shifting beneath the weight of uncertainty. He didn't want to betray Rose, not now, not when she had become his confidant in this desolate place. But the fear of exposure loomed larger than any warmth she brought. He was no longer just John the millionaire. He was John the convict, precariously teetering on the edge of redemption. The last thing he could afford was to drag someone else into the murky waters he had willingly submerged himself in. Art class was his refuge, a temporary escape where colors blended to obscure the starkness of reality. Yet today it felt different, tainted, as if the very essence of creativity had been poisoned by his swirling doubts. When Rose entered the room with her usual exuberance, the flicker of hope she ignited felt simultaneous with the weight pressing upon him. He couldn't allow those feelings to collapse under the fear of losing her or revealing his own vulnerability. Draw. Breathe. Feel. As class began, he glanced at her, noticing the way the sunlight caught her hair, the manner in which she swept the classroom with enthusiasm. She was alive with passion, undeterred by the prison walls. He admired her resilience, but doubt kept creeping in. Was it right to lean on that brightness for his own emotional survival? Or would it be selfish to engage himself with her light, knowing his darkness could extinguish it at any moment? With shaky hands he began to sketch, his pencil scraping against the paper, the sound almost cleansing in its intensity. But as he drew, the image grew distorted, embodying the inner turmoil he tried to suppress. The fluctuating lines mirrored his chaos, straddling the thin line between clarity and confusion. Rose strolled by, noticing the discord in his work. Her curiosity was palpable. "Hey, that's intense," she commented softly, her voice gently pulling him from the depths of his thoughts. "Just trying to express myself," he replied, masking the tension gripping his throat. "Expression is good," she encouraged. "It can reveal the paths we need to take." Paths. The word hit him. His path had diverged long ago. He stood at a crossroads and fear was consuming him, threatening to pull him back into the shadows where he'd once thrived. What had he learned in this unsettling clarity of confinement? Too often he had let ambition cloud judgment, leading to betrayals that cost him more than mere freedom. His heart yearned for redemption, yet here he was, teetering on the edge of yet another decision, one that could potentially devastate Rose. As she turned to assist another inmate, John wrestled with the burgeoning urgency to confront the truth behind the letter. To protect Rose, he needed to know her darkness first, to avoid unwittingly allowing hers to entangle with his. Would he have the strength to push past his own fears and engage in an authentic exchange? This was a moment for action, a pivotal junction in his journey that could unravel further layers of both his identity and his connection with Rose. Would he truly embrace the vulnerability that lay at the heart of genuine relationship, or would he falter yet again, giving in to the instinct to retreat? "Tomorrow, I'll ask her," he whispered to himself, an unspeakable determination igniting within him, quelling his fears if only for a moment. The next step in uncovering their intertwined truths loomed, and with it the prospect of facing both their pasts. But his heart kicked again as he felt the unseen eyes of the prison weigh heavily upon him, a stark reminder that truths often come at a price, and sometimes that price is too steep to bear. What awaited him was a confrontation that could define both their futures, if he could find the courage to push through the chaos lurking within. John awoke the next morning with a sense of relentless tension coursing through him, the remnants of confusion still clinging to his thoughts like a cobweb. He was acutely aware that he was on the brink of something pivotal, not only for himself but for Rose as well. The light streaming through the barred window felt less illuminating and more daunting. He sat at his small desk, staring at the same unfinished sketch that had haunted him the previous day, a swirling reminder of his internal strife. It wasn't just a reflection of his turbulent mind, it was the embodiment of decisions unmade. As he prepared for the day ahead, the fleeting clarity from the night before served as both armor and burden. Intent on initiating a conversation with Rose that could reshape their tenuous bond, John felt the weight of expectation settle heavily upon his shoulders. What if she rejected him? What if the truths he sought to uncover unleashed forces he could not control? Each scenario he played out in his mind sparked increasing anxiety, but the fierce desire to know her, to truly know her, sharpened his resolve. When he arrived at the art room, a buzz of creativity filled the air, but John felt an unnatural stillness surrounding him. Rose entered shortly after, her presence lighting up the room, yet all he could focus on was the tempest brewing inside him. As she made her way towards him, her smile cracked his facade a little. It was genuine and warm, yet within it lurked a truth he struggled to articulate. "Ready to create something new today?" she asked, her voice buoyant, oblivious to his inner turmoil. He nodded, searching for words that felt elusive. Rose, can we talk about something a bit deeper? His voice was strained, betraying the turmoil within. Sure, what's on your mind? Her curiosity was genuine. She leaned closer, placing her hands on the table between them, a gesture of openness that made it harder for him to breach the conversation's delicate barrier. I got a letter he began yesterday. He matched her gaze, forcing himself not to flinch. It's made me question, well, a lot of what I thought I understood about you. About us. Her expression shifted, curiosity morphing into something more somber. What do you mean? John took a deep breath, knowing the stakes were escalating with each passing second. It said I need to understand your darkness before I can share mine. The words hung in the air like a fragile thread, both binding and threatening to snap. I don't want to pull you into my shadows, but I can't help feeling there's more to you. Your art, it seems, both an escape and a revelation. Rose's gaze faltered for a moment, the spark in her eyes dimming as if he had flicked a switch. You think I have darkness? She asked softly, tracing the outline of the canvas in front of her, seeking a form of distraction. It's not about what I think, but what I fear, he confessed, his heart racing even faster. I've seen how people can wear masks, how trauma can shape art. I need to know you, Rose. I'm scared to invest my heart in someone whose past I don't understand. Her silence was deafening, an enormous wall erected between them. He could see the wheels turning in her mind, the very barriers that he wanted to dismantle beginning to fortify themselves once more. Everyone has darkness, John, but not everyone chooses to let it out, she finally said, her voice steady though laced with weight. The words resonated with him, but they also struck a chord of despair. Would she retreat now, leaving the topics he dared to broach lying scattered at their feet like fallen leaves? Can I share my darkness? He asked, urgency spilling out. Can we be brave enough to bear each other as burdens? Rose's expression shifted again, playing across a spectrum of fear, curiosity, and sudden depth. There was a tension crackling between them, a new understanding begging to break through the tension. Maybe, she replied, the word almost a whisper, but it's going to be hard. John saw an ember of determination ignite in her eyes, and for the first time, he felt a flicker of hope. But what revelations lay ahead? Would their shared darkness bring them closer or ignite flames of unmanageable chaos? With every second that passed, he felt the impending confrontation nudge closer. The shadows of their past loomed, casting uncertainty on everything they hoped to rebuild. Tomorrow then, he whispered, determined that the conversation would not end without clarity. Tomorrow we take a step together. As he spoke those words, each syllable acting as a fragile pact, John's heart echoed a new truth, a willingness to confront not only Rose's past but his own. Would he choose to face the storm brewing between them? John could feel it. He was standing at the brink of something monumental, where every moment could unearth buried secrets in the shadows they both sought to escape. Would they emerge from this with newfound strength, or would the revelations they faced drive them apart? The sun's rays filtered through the art room's window, casting elongated shadows on the floor that echoed the heaviness weighing in John's heart. Nervous energy buzzed within him as he waited for Rose to arrive the next day, each minute stretching into what felt like hours. The unsettling anticipation stoked his fears, magnifying the potential intensity of their conversation. What truths would she uncover? What wounds might be laid bare? As he sat at his desk, his hands gripped the edges tightly enough that his knuckles whitened. He glanced at the newspaper clippings taped to the wall, trivial features he had overlooked before. Engaging stories of life's unpredictability and second chances suddenly stabbed at him with force. Could his own battles find similar revelation? When Rose entered, her demeanor was markedly softer, as if she carried an invisible weight that matched his own. She offered a tentative smile, and in that moment, John felt a sharp clarity. They were both stepping into unknown territory, shadowed by past hurt, eager yet fearful to uncover truths. Ready? John asked, the playful tone he usually employed betraying the seriousness of the moment. Ready as I'll ever be, she replied, her words hanging between them. The atmosphere shifted, it felt charged, taut with possibility and dread. I know we said we would share, he began, wanting to direct the conversation with purpose. I think it would help to start with me. My shadows. Maybe you could find strength in my fear, and together we'll shed some light? Rose gazed at him intensely, and he felt as if she were peeling away layers, exposing the rawness of his core. I'm listening, she said. His heart pounded as he recalled memories long buried. When I was younger, all I wanted was acceptance. Eventually, I learned that seeking validation from others made me vulnerable. I wanted to fill a void that never really existed. Growing up, I lost myself in art because it was the only place I felt understood. But there was a darkness there too, an emptiness that came from my need to please others. He paused, gauging her response. Rose leaned in, seemingly drawn closer to his narrative, her own apprehension starting to flicker behind her hazel eyes. It spiraled until I found myself doing things I regret. I let the desire for acceptance drown my sense of self. It wasn't until the consequences crashed down upon me that I realized none of it mattered unless I could face the truth. The words hung in the air as John processed their collective weight. Would she see his vulnerabilities as flaws or as mere stepping stones to become better than his past? I guess what I'm saying, he continued with a shaky resolve, is that I don't want to hide from who I was, and I don't want to ever lose myself again. I want to be open, even if it's terrifying. Rose blinked, digesting his heavy confession, her expression shifting slowly from contemplation to courage. Thank you, she finally said. Thank you for sharing that. It's brave to face who we've been. But I'm curious, have you healed? Can we help each other in ways we couldn't have alone? John's heart raced with hope and hesitation at her words. What if she lingered too long on the darkness he had revealed, overlooking the solid ground he was struggling to regain? I think healing is a continuous journey, he admitted, his voice trembling slightly. I'm not completely whole, but I'm willing to fight through my shadows. I'm here for you to share whatever you feel comfortable with, in this art, in this space. The atmosphere became thick with unspoken possibilities, the very courage he had tried to offer her flowing critically in reverse. Would Rose take the step forward? Would she join him, opening herself up in ways that could solidify their connection? How does one express their darkness? She asked suddenly, a question dripping with urgency. Maybe art could be the bridge. John felt a furnace of energy ignite, both fear and exhilaration mingled within him. The notion excited him. They could channel their fears into creativity, molding it into something vibrant instead of letting it consume them. Let us create, then, he suggested, a spark of determination fueling his resolve. Let us relinquish our burdens to this canvas. Rose nodded, her heart mirrored in his growing intensity, a rare moment where vulnerability transmuted into shared strength. As they turned to their easels, brushes poised, John couldn't ignore the subtle tremors of uncertainty that rippled between them. Would they truly embrace their pasts, or would the act of creation draw out deeper shadows they weren't ready to confront? The strokes of the brush began to flow, but John couldn't escape the impending revelation that loomed like a dark cloud above their heads. Each mark on the canvas might tell a story that could either redeem or bury them further in secrets. Tomorrow, we define this new chapter, he whispered, fully aware that whatever emerged from their upcoming dialogue would not merely transform their relationship but could alter how they chose to navigate the world beyond these four walls. Would they seize the opportunity to face the truths lurking within their hearts, or would the fear of the unknown pull them apart, halting their journey before it even began? John dipped his brush into the vibrant blue paint, his mind racing with thoughts that clashed like the strokes on the canvas. Each movement felt like a wrestling match with his past. The blues echoed melancholy, while vivid strokes of yellow crisscrossed in defiance, representing his yearning for hope and renewal. The sound of Rose's brush against her palette broke through his contemplation. She was focused, methodical, as if trying to summon her thoughts into something tangible and visible. The air pulsed with creativity, and yet a shared tension was palpably present, tugging at the edges of their unison. "What are you trying to express?" he asked, torn between curiosity and his own inner whirlwind. "I'm not sure," she admitted, her brush faltering for an instant. "Maybe the heaviness I feel most days? Or the possibility of freeing myself from it?" John nodded, understanding all too well that feeling. Art can unsettle the familiar, right? It's the unspoken language we often ignore. The sincerity in his reflection haunted him. He wasn't just speaking about art, but the very act of emotional exploration. It was a gateway to confrontations he wasn't fully prepared for. He honed in on her painting, noting the darker shades clashing with vivid bursts of color. Her fight was palpable, and perhaps mirrored his own, an intuitive realization of how strong the human spirit can be when driven to confront itself. But could art really be the bridge they hoped for? As moments flew past, uncertainty gnawed at him. There remained a gap between revealing personal darkness and actually using it to create something constructive, something that might offer clarity or resolution. What happens when we run out of paint? He mused, a smile masking his unease. When fear seems more vibrant than our palette? Rose chuckled softly, her eyes alight with a flicker of shared understanding. We find more colors, I suppose? Or we blend the dark with the light until a new creation surfaces. Perhaps we have to risk the unintended, he replied, feeling buoyed by the notion of embracing unpredictability. They continued to paint, with strokes forming chaotic yet beautiful interminglings of color on their canvases. Each brushstroke became a waypoint on their shared journey, a silent negotiation with their inner fears, frailty, and budding courage. They discovered that, unlike life, art afforded them the chance to correct and adjust where failures could evolve into masterpieces. Yet, as layers of paint built upon one another, doubt lingered at the periphery. John's mind recalled the trepidation that had swiftly followed his vulnerability earlier. What if opening up this way transformed everything? What if lessons learned through art only served to deepen their wounds? Tomorrow we dive deeper, he declared, setting his brush down and beginning to reflect on the day's process. Let us make an intention. Not just for our art but for this conversation. An intention? Rose echoed, tilting her head as if processing the weight of the suggestion. Yeah. Let us target a truth to unveil every session, something we can hold ourselves accountable for. I mean, we're daring to shed light on darker aspects. It should have purpose. Her brow furrowed, then softened into an understanding smile. So, it's a plan? To navigate this journey together layer by layer? Exactly. Transparency lies in our ability to challenge each other, he articulated, managing a sense of hope for their budding partnership. The journey was daunting, but life was inherently unpredictable. They could harness that unpredictability with purpose. I like it, she said, and for the first time in their interaction, he saw a flicker of determination behind her uncertainty. Yet, the clarity that was emerging felt fragile. What if confronting honesty also revealed vulnerabilities they weren't ready to confront? As they stood side by side in their creative sanctuary, shadows from their past seemed to linger, suggesting that the next canvas could take them to places they might rather avoid. What if this is where true healing and transformation begin? John whispered, an undercurrent of excitement coursing through him even as doubt threatened to shadow the thought. Rose stared thoughtfully into her painting, and he barely recognized the silence. It felt like a breath before the plunge into the depths of their souls. Somewhere beneath their vibrant strokes, the impending dialogue was waiting, daring them to confront truths either might wish to address. In this sacred moment shared between artists, John felt the intertwining potential of fear and strength coiling around his heart. Tomorrow loomed before them, not simply as another day to create, but as an opportunity to unravel deeper questions. Would they possess the courage to pull back the layers of paint, exposing the raw reality beneath? Morning light spilled into the makeshift studio, casting a warm glow over the canvases. John stood before his painting, brushed against by the fresh energy of a new day. The context of the artistic pact from yesterday lingered heavily in his mind, a commitment to delve deeply, to seek truths he might prefer to avoid. Yet the unease still whirled within him. Could he confront the shadows that had haunted him for so long? Determined not to back down, he prepared mentally, forcing his gaze onto the swirling colors on his canvas, allowing them to provoke thought, to reflect. The strokes that danced there seemed alive, echoing the push and pull of his emotions. He reached for the paint again, hoping to blend the chaotic essence into something that spoke of unity within discord. Rose arrived moments later, her footsteps echoing lightly across the studio floor. She looked energized, as if the weight of yesterday's conversation had sparked a fire within her. "Ready for today?" she asked, a mixture of challenge and eagerness in her tone. "More than ready," John replied, though a part of him questioned that resolve. His mind tugged at past failures, moments where intent had succumbed to fear. The swirling colors reminded him that art was a vehicle for expression, but what about the emotional baggage that weighed just as heavily as the paint? They both set to work, yet the pace of creation felt different today. Each brushstroke reverberated an echoed conversation trapped between them, unspoken fears merging with the visual chaos. John moved swiftly, the paint flooding his thoughts while still considering the intention that hung between them, pressing for release. What truth lay hidden beneath layers yet to be painted? "Should we discuss what our intention for today should be?" Rose asked, breaking the silence. The prompt felt both timely and daunting. "Yes," he sighed, stopping his brush. "I think today, I want to confront my fear of vulnerability, how to openly share my experiences without drowning in them." He surprised himself with the admission. Rose's eyes widened at his candidness, a hint of admiration flickering across her face. "That's a big step, John. What led you to that? Honestly?" He paused, wrestling with the duality of pride and terror. "I've always viewed vulnerability as a weakness, something to shield from others. But maybe that fear has limited my growth more than the unveiling itself." She nodded knowingly, dipping her brush into a crimson hue. "It's like when I paint over a mistake, it rarely covers it entirely. It still exists beneath, haunting the work." "Exactly." John spoke with newfound determination. "Today, we don't aim to cover or hide from our pasts. Instead, let's use them as foundations for something stronger." As they shared their thoughts, the silence that had previously encased them began to fracture. Slowly, Rose admitted her fears, how she worried that her emotions might overwhelm her art. With each revelation, John felt a growing solidarity. The act of sharing felt like disentangling cobwebs woven in deep corners of his psyche. An idea sparked within him, bright and insistent. Let us paint the emotions we feel, what we choose to expose and what we tend to disguise. We'll make it the essence of our work today. "That's powerful," she agreed, a glimmer of excitement swirling in her gaze. Yet could she fully grasp the transformation this suggestion might catalyze for them both? With brushes poised, they both targeted their canvases, allowing the colors to flow freely as they channeled their insights into vibrant patterns. Efforts were clumsy, surreal, yet raw. John felt the boundaries of his discomfort gradually recede with each brushstroke, replaced by potent realizations. Yet, as he mixed darker shades, shadows danced around the edges of his mind, hinting at the buried memories still lurking. What if unleashing these emotions set off a tide he couldn't control? Doubts lingered but were overshadowed by the thrill of shared exploration. Vulnerability was transformative. Their canvases stood as artifacts of their session, rich layers revealing glimpses of the past interwoven with hopes for a brighter future. The connection sparked between them, tinged with the delicate essence of unspoken potential. Together they were evolving. With the sunlight flickering dimmer as the day slipped away, John turned to share another thought, a memory surfacing. What if this journey we're on pushes us to confront not just our art, but our lives outside this studio too? Wouldn't that be a revolution? Rose met his gaze, hers filled with a raw mixture of excitement and trepidation. Just as she opened her mouth to reply, John's phone buzzed, breaking the moment. Glancing at the screen, he felt an immediate drop in his stomach. A message from an old friend he thought he had escaped. In that instant, the weight of their intentions dangerously hung in the air. Would their freshly forged alliance withstand the jarring reality about to intrude? The revelation felt unsettling, ominous, and exhilarating all at once. What awaited them on the other side? John's heart raced as he stared at his phone, the message blinking insistently as if it were a lighthouse guiding him toward familiar but treacherous waters. The sender's name felt both welcoming and menacing. Megan. They hadn't spoken since that night he chose to ghost her, retreating into distance rather than face the chaos his emotions stirred. He took a deep breath, attempting to steady his escalating heartbeat. "It's just a text," he muttered, trying to convince himself. You decide how to react. He realized this would be a defining moment, where his choice would either unravel or fortify the vulnerability he had just committed to confronting. John, you okay? Rose's voice pulled him out of his tailspin. She eyed him with concern, brush hovering in midair. It was a question without an easy answer, but honesty surged through him. I just got a message from Megan, he admitted, irritation laced with vulnerability. The shift in his mind was palpable. Vulnerability here felt like an anchor, both heavy and grounding. Rose's eyebrows knitted together. The one from your past? He nodded, resentment rising along with self-awareness. I thought I had closed that door. Maybe that door wasn't meant to be closed, just redefined, she suggested, dipping her brush in another color as if mixing her own emotions into the canvas. John leaned back, considering her words. Redefined how? I walked away for a reason. I was scared. Then your journey today could be about finding the courage to face not only your art but your lives, she responded, voice steady. What if you took control of that narrative? Her suggestion ignited a spark within him. John envisioned a palette rich with possibilities, colors of regret shaded by growth, mixed with hues of hesitation blending into shades of hope. What if this conversation with Megan could unravel a knot of misunderstanding that had bound him for so long? His artistic ambition to paint his emotions could expand into the very fabric of his life, defining a new chapter. Taking a deep breath, he unlocked his phone, shaking with a mix of exhilaration and trepidation. The last thing he wanted was to re-engage with feelings he believed he had mastered. He opened the message, reluctant yet somehow propelled by an innate desire to confront everything he was running from. Hey John, I hope you're doing all right. I've been thinking about our last conversation. Can we talk? Her words hung over him, heavy yet liberating, prompting the question looming in his mind. Did he dare step into the ring of vulnerability that today had promised? This could offer a chance to untangle past conflicts, free both himself and Megan from shadows that had extended far too long. Do you want me to reply? Rose asked, the gentle insistence in her tone cutting through his swirling thoughts. Yeah, he replied, his voice steadier this time. As he typed, unexpected determination coursed through him. It felt like stepping outside into a storm and daring it to pass. Sure, let's talk. We can meet tomorrow. The words settled heavily in the atmosphere, an unexpected weight mingled with a bright glimmer of renewal. And now, you can shift your focus back to painting, Rose urged, glancing at her own vibrant canvas speckled with emotional expressions. With renewed inspiration, he immersed himself back into the strokes, each movement fueled by transformation, the mingling of art and life. He approached the canvas not just as a surface to express himself, but as a gateway to his own journey. The colors swirled into something different, layers of past and present intertwining, each brushstroke bridging emotional gaps. Yet with each stroke, a shadow lingered, a fear that confronted him head-on. What if reaching out to Megan unspooled a deeper chaos than he was prepared for? John paused, brush hovering above the canvas, grappling with this pivotal question: could this conversation lead to healing, or would it open wounds he didn't yet understand? The uncomfortable uncertainty gnawed at him, a reminder that the journey of vulnerability would never be a straight path. As twilight slipped into the studio, shadows from the setting sun danced across the walls, blending with questions that would not leave his mind. He turned to Rose, determination tempered with uncertainty glinting in his eyes. What if confronting my past means losing myself all over again? Rose met his gaze with fierce resolve. You want to lose yourself, John? You'll be building a new foundation. But a nagging sentiment tugged at him. Was he truly prepared for the risks of discovery? Or had he opened a door into a storm? With this mind swirling, he stepped back to his canvas, ready to confront the truth as he faced shadows from both art and life. Would this commitment to honesty resonate throughout his world? The brush trembled in his hand, eyes fixated on vivid possibilities yet tethered to the reality that awaited him just beyond their creative sanctuary. And as the night deepened, John knew something monumental hung in the balance. Could he muster the courage needed to embrace the chaos of life outside the studio? The moment of confrontation felt imminent. The next morning dawned gray and overcast, as if the sky itself sensed the weight of John's anticipation. He sat in the studio, canvas before him, untouched paints glistening like potential, but his focus was elsewhere, firmly fixed on the impending conversation with Megan. Dawn's clarity hinted at possibilities that clawed at him, intertwining with threads of fear that made his stomach flip. He prepared to paint, but each brushstroke felt like a prelude rather than action. The remnants of his last chaotic night buzzed within him. He was torn between the peaceful hum of creativity and the disruptive howl of doubt. His heart raced at the thought of revisiting their past, reopening doors he thought had rusted shut. Megan represented more than just a former flame. She was a reflection of the man he had once been, filled with passion yet suffocated by uncertainty. Picking up a brush, John hesitated, noting how the bristles trembled slightly. What if this meeting pulled him back to a version of himself he didn't recognize? He thought of the walls he had built around his emotions, each one reinforced by years of silence and avoidance. Yet part of him ached for the connection he had severed. Did he owe it to himself and to Megan to dismantle that wall? He imagined the conversation unfurling in waves, moments of awkwardness, candor, laughter, perhaps even the rekindling of a connection once lost. With that thought, the urge to paint surged again. He started with darker hues, capturing an underlying tension he could feel simmering just beneath the surface. As he worked, an unexpected revelation pierced through the cloud of anxiety. What if, instead of fearing the return of his past, he recognized it as an opportunity to redefine himself? He was no longer the boy who ghosted. He was a man standing on the precipice of reinvention. The fear of those emotions was valid, but it didn't have to govern his actions. With renewed determination, John started incorporating brighter colors into his painting, swirling them into the mix of darkness, a visual representation of melding the past with hope for the future. His brush danced across the canvas, a rhythm emerging that echoed his decision to confront whatever lay ahead. It was both liberating and terrifying. Time slipped through his fingers, and John glanced at the clock, realizing he had barely a couple of hours before the meeting. Anxiety reached a fever pitch, peppered with excitement. He switched off the music, choosing instead to allow the silence to envelop him as he finished the last strokes, imprinting the message he so desperately needed to internalize. Embracing vulnerability was a powerful act of courage, not a weakness. After a few moments of contemplation, he stepped back to observe his creation, a chaotic swirl reflecting tumultuous emotions brightened by splashes of light and the promise of clarity. It felt like a mirror, revealing his inner transformations alongside the unpredictable journey into his past. A sense of pride swelled within him, and he realized the power of confronting the uncertainty had already begun to shift his perception. He gathered his things, each motion filled with purpose but shadowed by the tension of what was next. As he walked out of the studio, the weight of previous decisions started to feel lighter, emboldened by the ideals he had painted into existence. The drive to the cafe where they planned to meet became a personal pilgrimage towards self-discovery. John's mind raced with reminders of their history and the mistakes he had made, but they mingled with budding hope as he replayed Rose's words in his thoughts. This was about building a new foundation. He parked and slowly walked toward the entrance, every stride pushing him closer to a moment that could alter the trajectory of his life. As he stepped inside, scanning the crowd for her familiar face, he felt the tremor of nerves grip him one last time. What if Megan had moved on? What if this renegade past swept him deeper than he anticipated? In that instant, he recognized this was the moment he had looked for, not only to resolve the unfinished conversation with Megan but to confront the shadow of his fears and step into the light of renewal. Finally spotting her, John felt another wave of determination wash over him, an urge to change the narrative entirely. But behind the steady facade, uncertainty nagged. Was he prepared to accept the consequences of reigniting those flames, or would this plunge lead to turmoil once more? With one deep breath, he approached their table, greeting the ghost of his past with a courageous resolve that lingered somewhere between trepidation and triumph. The conversation awaited, infused with the potential for unexpected revelations. Would this be the clash of worlds he feared, or the beginning of a profound exploration? Only time would tell. As John approached the table, his pulse quickened, each step accentuated by the echo of their shared history. Megan looked up, her expression fluttering between surprise and familiarity. It struck him how the years had altered both of them yet preserved the essence he cherished. Her hair fell softly around her shoulders, and for an instant, the weight of their past felt more tangible than the wooden chair he would soon occupy. "John," she greeted, her voice laced with an undertone of both curiosity and reservation. He replied, "Megan," and the single syllable hung in the air, charged with unspoken memories. As he settled into his chair, he struggled against an urge to fill the silence with the mundane, to mask the gravity of this moment. Instead, he opted for authenticity. "I've thought a lot about our last conversation," he stated, his gaze steady and free of the white-knuckled grip of anxiety. "Me too," she admitted, though there was a hint of hesitation in her eyes, a hesitance he understood all too well. John knew he wasn't that boy anymore, the one who shied away from intimacy and fled from vulnerability. An invisible wall had been dismantled within him, and he felt an almost palpable urge to reach across the table. "I need to apologize," he blurted out, testing the waters of reconciliation. "For everything, the way things ended between us. It wasn't fair, and I've carried that guilt for too long." To his surprise, Megan leaned forward, her brow furrowing. "You think you were the only one there?" "I've had my own regrets." Her response shocked him. They had both been victims of miscommunication and fear, entwined in a dance that left them both questioning their worth. His pulse normalized slightly as he listened, feeling a shift in the air. Her honesty illuminated a shared struggle. This was a space for growth, not just closure. As they spoke, John's courage shifted from mere words to action. With each moment, he began to peel back the layers he had allowed to thicken over the years. "I want to know what happened to you. Not just the surface stuff, but everything. How you've changed, who you are now," he confessed, the rawness of his inquiry causing a stirring in his own heart. Megan's expression softened, and he could sense the weight of her own burdens as she shrugged off years of silence like an old coat. "I took a leap of faith, moved to a new city, started a business from scratch." The pride in her voice reflected a transformation he hadn't anticipated, growth similar to his own, but achieved through a different route. But as she shared, a deepening shadow settled in his mind. Her success was a testament to her resilience, yet it ignited an undercurrent of insecurity within him. Would she view him, the artist still trying to find his footing, as less than worthy of her acclaim and newfound confidence? Their conversation flowed, revealing successes and failures, and as he opened up about his struggles with self-doubt and creativity, he gained clarity. "I've realized that change is necessary, but it's terrifying when you don't know where it will take you." In her eyes, he saw a flicker of understanding. She recognized her own fears mirrored in his revelations. They were both facilitators of their growth, yet haunted by the ghosts of the past. "Why did we let fear dictate so much?" John asked, processing how their earlier decision to separate had been rooted in overwhelming self-doubt. It felt like a revelation, an insight that rippled through him with profound impact. "We thought it was safer," she replied softly. "But now, I see we had the power to challenge that." Her words resonated within him, a call to embrace vulnerability, a lesson he wished to carry forth in his journey. This conversation had become a catalyst, pushing him toward purpose, igniting a desire to foster deeper connections rather than flee from them. But as they concluded the discussion, an existential question loomed over them both: what did that vulnerability entail going forward? The past had been laid bare, and the promise of a second chance glimmered just out of reach. Would they navigate the complexity of their revived connection, or would the shadows of their history hinder their growth? The air felt charged with the promise of change, intercepting their conversation with a pause that hung heavy between them. With that unspoken question lingering, John felt the anticipation of a new chapter unfurling before them, one that could redefine not just their relationship, but also the paths they each choose to traverse on their journey of self-discovery. But as the cafe's ambient noise wrapped around them like a blanket, he sensed that this moment was merely the beginning of an exploration deeper than either had anticipated. What lay ahead would test their resolve, and as they delved into what could be a rekindled future, how would they contend with the emerging shadows beckoning from the edges of yesterday? As John walked away from the cafe, hope surged within him, pulsating in sync with newfound clarity. The conversation with Megan had indeed uncoiled years of silent regret, paving the way toward acceptance. He had faced the remnants of his past, uncovering them layer by layer, and emerged not only unscathed but enriched. A shift had taken place. He was no longer the man who refused to engage with vulnerability. The shadows that once loomed now flickered with potential, transforming him from a convict into a contributor, ready to redefine his narrative. Embracing the potential for positive growth, John returned to the studio, his sanctuary, with renewed vigor. Inspired by the resolve he had witnessed in both himself and Megan, he approached his canvas. Gone was the viscous heaviness of self-doubt weighing him down. Instead, it was replaced with the determination to manifest his journey into something beautiful. The colors danced more exuberantly as he dipped his brush, reflecting his transformation. Painting these moments of confrontation brought clarity. He painted wild strokes of blues and greens, representing the turmoil he had weathered, while golden yellows illuminated the hopes springing forth from his willingness to embrace his vulnerabilities. Each brushstroke felt like a declaration of liberation, a statement of the man he intended to be. This was the new John Harrison, confident and competent, a far cry from the tense, crumbling figure shackled by his past. As days turned into weeks, John's progress was undeniable not just on his canvas, but within the very essence of his being. Each art session with Rose became an exploration of emotions that previously felt too painful to touch. They shared personal stories, balancing between their shadows and shared light, giving birth to robust dialogues about their experiences and insecurities. In the safe confines of their makeshift studio, John learned that bravery was not the absence of fear, but the knowledge that he could move forward regardless of it. His artwork started gaining attention from the prison's rehabilitation programs, prompting a rare exhibition that showcased the inmate's journey toward renewal. John himself was astonished, a budding artist finding validation amidst his penance, transforming pain into captivating visualizations of redemption. His heart swelled with deep satisfaction. The same art that once served as an escape was now a communicating vessel, drawing connections between lives entwined by circumstance. The exhibition day arrived, and as he stood among the gathered crowd, wardens, family members, and fellow inmates, John felt a wave of genuine gratitude wash over him. The voices that echoed within him, filled with doubt and guilt, began to mellow into whispers of acknowledgement. Each stroke of paint he presented captured the legacy of overcoming not just for himself, but for those around him. Art had become his voice. In a moment of introspection, a handler approached John, a gallery owner interested in presenting his work to a broader audience. "Your growth is undeniable, John. You've proven mastery over your adversity," she said, eyes wide with wonder. "Imagine the impact your story can have outside these walls. It can inspire others." For the first time, he felt not just recognized, but profoundly valued. "I would love that opportunity," he replied, his voice steady and self-assured. It was a pinnacle moment of achievement, confirming his evolution from an architect of chaos to a beacon of hope. After the exhibition, John invited Rose to join him for a celebratory dinner. They agreed to meet, not just as artistic comrades, but as partners in a journey they both understood better than most. He could see in her eyes a reflection of the struggle they had both navigated, a bond that transcended previous obstacles. "I want you to know how much our sessions meant to me," John confessed that night, losing himself in her warmth. "You dared me to confront my reality when I was too afraid to do so." Rose shifted closer, absorbing his words as they exchanged stories imbued with their vulnerabilities, knitting their lives together through art. Their bond was cemented by shared understanding, the two of them, harnessing the aftermath of regrets and transforming them into a tapestry of vibrant confidence and authenticity. John leaned in closer. "Let us take this journey together, not just as artists, but as people seeking connection and renewal." With a gentle nod, Rose smiled, her support unwavering. Together they leaned into tomorrow, buoyed by the pride of resurrected dreams and a future replete with possibilities. John had not only conquered his fears, but he established his place as an advocate for change, an artist harnessing the power of his narrative to guide others through their own struggles. With each passing day, John absorbed wisdom from the world beyond prison walls, embracing complexity, rebuilding bridges once thought lost. He was not merely a survivor but an architect of transformation. Through his journey with Rose and the ongoing evolution of his art, he affirmed that vulnerability was indeed a strength that fostered connection, clarity, and ultimately, true fulfillment. Now, with clear intentions, John stood once more before his canvas, carving out an existence where darkness could coexist with light, where each line expressed both truth and resilience. His growth was both his achievement and his purpose, a legacy of dedication to living authentically. Be inspired, be transformed. Don't wait even one more second. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and fuel the message of hope and redemption. Comment below your reactions and theories about John's powerful journey and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel with your voice and your engagement.